Do I need to? Can y'all hear me in the back? Stuart, you can hear me? All right, good. I'm not a morning person, folks. I'll be the first one to admit it. And this is my, first full cup of coffee. So it takes a while to get my engine going, my motor running. I have to say that it is indeed an honor and privilege. I'm glad you're doing these things because I think it's extremely important to get your elected officials in front of the business and community leaders all across, not just our the county, but all across our state and all across our nation. Because so often we just, we elect somebody because they dress right, they talk right, and then they go up to, say, Jackson, or they go up to D.C., and then they start voting absolutely against, your principles, your values, and so it's always good to get them, make them come back and make them answer the tough questions. And I like to do Q&A, so I'm gonna open that up in a minute. It's good to see our Senator-elect Tony Smith here. It's great to have a small business owner going up to Jackson to continue fostering a healthy business climate for our state. Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. And, but it's always good. It's good to see the mayor here and Wayne and everybody. I mean, I consider everybody in here a good friend. And, if it wasn't for Pearl River County, I wouldn't be standing here as your congressman. I don't forget that. A day doesn't go by that I forget that. I've been very blessed to have your support and your friendship, and I'm going to continue doing whatever it takes to make America stronger and more prosperous for the next generation. And because we have to protect the future for our children. If we don't do it, if we keep kicking the can down the road, if we keep punting on tough and difficult decisions, then they're going to have to address this, and they're going to have the less ability, less willpower, less gump to do it, because the mess just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I will say last weekend we celebrated the 50th anniversary of Stennis Space Center. It was a wonderful event at the Lockheed Martin facility, and everybody in here is no stranger to what Stennis has to offer. It's a federal city, over 30 plus agencies out there, thousands of jobs. I mean, I think it's over 4,000 jobs out there. Average salary is probably somewhere around $85,000. That's huge. That is wonderful, and we want to grow it. I mean, it's not even anywhere near its growth potential. So we're trying to constantly. People are coming up with wonderful ideas. Say, look, we could do this. We could do this. We need to. When we do the data consolidation, we could. They have all the NSIP storage out there. The Department of Homeland Security. Maybe we can get the Department of Army to come down there and. Just a wonderful facility. But of course we can't forget the anchor is NASA. Testing rocket engines is its bread and butter. And that's what attracts all the other jobs. And as chairman of the Space and Aeronautics Subcommittee, I've been working every time we have a hearing, whether it's the administrator or whether it's the first astronaut to step on the moon or the last astronaut to step on the moon, we ask them about testing before we fly. And the last man to step on the moon, Commander Gene Cernan, I asked him about that. He goes, well, basically, let me see if I can recall what he said. He said, every man we sent to the moon came back safely. And that's one of the highest compliments you could give Stennis Space Center. And it was because the question was, do you believe in testing before we fly? Now, lately, everybody knew that the Soyuz rocket blew up. Everybody in here does know that our shuttle mission has been stopped, and that they've been retired, and we're working towards other vehicles, the SLS, the multi-purpose crewed vehicle, and others. But in the meantime, we're having to buy a seat on Russian rockets. Right now, it's $64 million a seat. Wow, a seat. That's a lot of money that we're taking out of the American economy, taking out of our space program, and sending overseas. Well, a Soyuz rocket, similar, not 100%, but similar, exploded within the past 2 months. Now they've tested one, and they're going to test two before we actually put American astronauts on that to go back up to the space station. So someone the other day said, well, you know, they only test 1 in 6 rockets. The Russians do. And I'm thinking, why is this person telling me? They're trying to tell me that they're going to stop testing rocket engines because, you know, that affects Stennis Space Center. And then I thought about it, it just hit me. I said, you know, but Russia also invented Russian roulette. We don't play that game. We don't play that game here in America, so we're going to test every engine. And as we know, the path to the moon, the path to Mars, the path to anywhere else or beyond has to go through Hancock County, Mississippi. It's going to go through Stennis Space Center, and you know, and that's my commitment. I've got the administrator on record as well. He believes in testing before we fly, and so we've got a lot of hearing, a lot of testimony, just showed the commitment that we have to that. Also this week, I've had the chairman, Buck McKeon, the House Armed Services Committee, come down to see our district. His time was limited, so I focused on 2 things, Keesler and shipbuilding. So I was able to take him out to the Keesler Air Force Base, introduce the wing commanders, the tactical squadron commanders, you know, some of the MedCom was out there, just to let him see what we had. It was his first visit to Mississippi, and he was surprised that we wore suits. Because other people didn't always wear suits. But you know, it was beautiful. It was a beautiful day. We were at the Biloxi Yacht Club for a lunch, looking out. He said, "Listen, this is a place that I could move to, if it wasn't for the humidity." And I said, "It's an acquired thing." But we took him around, and you know, I wanted him to see the assets and resources. I want him to see how important South Mississippi is to our national security. But I also wanted to let him know how important our national security efforts in South Mississippi is important to our economy. And he got the message. And that kind of leads me into something that I think y'all probably are aware of. We got to come up with $1.2 trillion in cuts by November 23rd. And I'm going to talk about the super committee. Or they don't like to be called the super committee, they like to be called the Joint Committee on Deficit Reduction. But it's really super committee, that's what it's been labeled in the papers. I'm not so sure everybody's going to be working in a good faith effort to come up with $1.2 trillion in cuts. What we've seen so far out of this shared sacrifice that Democrats and Republicans are supposed to be putting everything on the table. Well, so far, defense cuts take up half the table. But if we eliminated all of our defense spending and all of our discretionary spending, if we eliminated NASA, everything from the budget, we would still run $500 billion deficits a year. So guess what? Defense, NASA, our space program, our other programs are not what's driving up our deficit and adding to our debt. It's our entitlements. And we have to fundamentally restructure our entitlements in our country. And we've had a proposal to do that. It was in the Path of Prosperity, which is the only budget that has been passed, and it passed the House and went over to the Senate. It hadn't been taken up, and we know they haven't taken up a budget in 900 days. But so understanding that defense is not the #1 driver of our deficits and our debts, but it's taken the brunt of the cuts. Now that's $500 trillion that has already been agreed to before the super committee. This is in the budget right now. These are the next decade of overlays. It's tough. We're going to be able to recognize a lot of efficiencies. It's going to bring our military down to about the size it was before 9/11. It's going to shrink, you know, it's going to be at some of its lower levels than we've seen in over 10 years. But we're confident that the military is going to be able to continue to execute their missions. Now that's what's been agreed upon. So let's kind of go back to the super committee. The super committee's got to come up with $1.2 trillion in cuts. If they fail to come up with cuts, it automatically goes to sequestration. Sequestration is designed to be so horrific, so bad, that they're forced to do the right thing in the super committee. Well, each day we see that nothing's really happening. They can't agree, you know, supposedly it was a gentleman's agreement that there'd be no new tax revenues, so there'd be no new tax increases. Now they're talking about the millionaire's tax. Now they're talking about taxing Anybody that makes over $200,000 again, which is our small business owners, and that's the last people you want to increase taxes on, because they're the only ones creating new jobs in America, and they represent all 65% of all new jobs in the past decade. So, but they don't want to talk entitlement reform. They don't want to talk Social Security. They don't want to talk Medicare. They don't want to, do any of these things. So I think the super committee is going to break down. That's just, and I'm trying to prepare people for that, because if the sequestration goes in, and we're looking at another $600 billion in cuts to our military, that's a game changer. We're gonna lose vital missions. We're not going to be able to make our global commitment to our allies and to be able to, so I guess carry through with our treaties. Shipyards are going to be mothballed. We could lose up to 60 ships. It's estimated 2 carrier battle groups, 1/3 of our Army maneuver battalions, 200,000 troops from the Marine Corps and the Army will be lost. Their benefits will have to be adjusted. We'll be breaking faith with the very people who we've promised that we would provide health care for life, that we promised that you take care of us and our families, we will take care of you. So I guess my thing is this is serious. But the good news is we have people up there on House Armed Services Committee that's prepared to fight to the end to make sure it does not go to sequestration. We're prepared to do whatever it takes to avoid sequestration, and we're going to put the pressure on the super committee to come up with the cuts that are necessary. And because we're not going to break the promises to our men and women in uniform. And we're still 100% committed. They're going to have the equipment, the tools, the training, and the leadership they deserve to go do their jobs overseas and be able to come back home to communities like Pearl River County, come back home to their families safe and sound. So we are armed. I mean, it took us a while to come together. Some people say, well, why did you vote for why did y'all put all this in there? Again, we thought government could actually come together and find common ground. And we also knew that each consecutive bill would have been worse and worse and worse. And we had to avoid a default of our nation's debt because that would have caused irreparable harm that no one can really imagine. And I wasn't sent up there to shut the government down. I don't think did anybody send me up there to shut the government down? Did anybody send me up there to default on the national debt? No, I haven't found anybody yet, but they did send us up there to change the direction of this country. They get our fiscal affairs in order, start fostering a healthy business climate, start figuring out ways to remove the uncertainty from the marketplace so businesses will expand, they'll create jobs and grow ourselves out of this disaster, as well as reduce our spending back to normal levels. And that's what we're doing. And I'm proud to report that we've had many victories for conservatism in this 112th Congress. Now, most of them we pass and send them over to the Senate and they die, but we have changed the debate from how much this administration is going to spend to how much we're going to cut. Historically, we've had 2 cuts in a row, which is almost unheard of in our nation's history. But although these victories are small, they're going to add up to a big win. They're going to add up to a big win for South Mississippi. They're going to add up to a big win for America. And that's what I'm up there doing. Is again, I'm committed to leaving America more stronger, more prosperous for my children, your children, and for generations to come. So that's it. Questions and answers. Yes, ma'am.
I'm relatively new to the community. Can you tell me a little bit more about yourself in terms of how you got into and where you aspire to go to longer term?
To a hunting camp. I don't know. The mayor was talking about he's always trying to attract business to the county, and I'm not gonna, his economic development efforts is he was talking about somebody that had a 15,000 acre farm or camp, and I'm like, that sounds nice. That's like a small. That sounds like a small city. No, seriously. I'm not a career politician. I know I'm a politician now. I prefer to be considered a citizen, legislator, or a statesman. But I didn't get into politics until I was 36 years old. I'm actually 41, by the way. I mean, I know you're new, and a lot of people think I'm in my 20s. I try to talk in a deeper voice, and you know, I need to start wearing glasses and dyeing my hair. But my background is my family's. You know, we're 5th generation South Mississippians on my dad's side, 8 generations on my mom's side, Mississippians. Lifelong resident of the Gulf Coast. Joined the Marine Corps after my first semester in college. Served as an enlisted Marine for 8 years in the reserves. Then served in the Persian Gulf War. Made it back. I started out at Mississippi State. Then realized, you know, every time I go back to state, I get activated or something. So the Marine Corps calls me back. So then I realized my destiny's black and gold. Everybody in my family was Southern Miss graduates, so I ended up getting, it was, I couldn't fight it. I couldn't fight it. And it's been wonderful because I got my bachelor's and my master's in professional accountancy from there. And it's just, I mean, there's so many things. I've worked offshore on 3 different occasions. On my last occasion, I actually, the company realized that they had a CPA working offshore as a materials manager on a deep water drill ship, and they coaxed me into coming to Houston, Texas to be a financial, actually a fixed asset property accountant for 3 deep water drill ships. And then I went to work for Brown and Root, and it actually it was in the middle of the Balkans War, and they needed some sharp accountants over in Hungary and Bosnia, and went and did that and came back. I've got a wonderful wife. Met her, again, it's all about destiny. Met her out in front of the hub at Southern Miss. She was soliciting students for, that sounds bad, for student and alumni memberships. And I was actually out there trying to help one of my fraternity brothers get elected to Student Government Association. He wasn't as lucky as I was, because he introduced me to her. And so I married my college sweetheart. We have 3 wonderful children. And somewhere in there, when I came back from overseas, I got into the Mississippi Army National Guard, where I'm still currently serving at Camp Shelby, and started a CPA firm, and it grew from basically my bedroom into a 4,600 square foot building, 15 employees, 2,000 clients in over 20 foreign countries. And my wife's managing all that right now, along with 3 children. Well, 4 if you count me. So, that's it in a nutshell.
David Farrell with the Picayune item. We've been watching the Republican debates. Do you have a favorite, or is there anybody that up there that really you could identify with? And then how do you see, you were elected in a big sea change in the last election. How do you see 212 shaping up?
All right. I'm disappointed in the Republican presidential candidates. I think they all have, you know, good qualities, but they don't all have the you know, abundance of great qualities. You know, you've got some that are business leaders, some that have been effective in government, some have great ideas on immigration, some have great ideas on fostering a healthy business climate, but no one candidate embodies all the qualities I want to see in a president. But I think it's still early. We're still getting to know the candidates, and you know, and of course this is new to a lot of them as well. And I'm hoping to see, you know, just keep watching them. Hope they'll grow into the position, because you know, we're going to have a great debater. There's no doubt of you know, that our current president is good. He's very I mean, he's not good in his record of job creation, things like that, but he's very charismatic, and he's very persuasive. We've seen that in 2008. So it's going to take a strong, solid candidate, but it's still time. It's still time for them to materialize. It's still time, hopefully, for certain attributes that I think we in South Mississippi appreciate and want to see in a president. But also the reality is, you know, it's going to take someone a little more moderate than an ultra-conservative. I'd love to see an ultra-conservative elected president, but you know, I'll settle for an ultra-conservative vice president. keep the president in line. And yeah, you're right. The historic election in 2010 was people are fed up. They're fed up with their government. They woke up. I don't mean they woke up, but they've been so preoccupied with raising a family, being good citizens. You know, I see it's like every day they get up, they take their kids to school, they go to work, they come home, they play in the yard, they go over their homework, they fix dinner, they put them to bed, and that happens Monday through Friday. And Friday nights we're out at the football fields or the ballparks, and Saturdays we're in the yards, and Sundays we're in church, and we do it over and over and over again. That's what I think a lot of America was doing, and we relied on our elected officials to go up there and to serve us, and they didn't. They've lost their path somewhere along the way, and so this is going to be there's still a certain amount of frustration, a lot of frustration, disappointment, and it's right under the surface. You're not seeing it as much because we have taken the House. We made it a lot more conservative than it was. We're able to stop a lot of the agenda from the Senate Democrats and the president. So, but they're still concerned that if we don't take the Senate and actually have a new president elected, that we're not going to be able to repeal Dodd-Frank. So we're not going to be able to repeal the government takeover of health care. We're not going to be able to foster a healthy business climate. We're not going to be able to repeal a lot of job-killing regulations that are out there. That we're not going to be able to restrain the EPA from, churning out record levels. And these are unelected bureaucrats churning out record levels of regulations that are just basically putting American businesses out of business and forcing American jobs overseas. So I think the energy's there. It just hasn't been tapped into just yet, but it will be as we get closer to the election.
How open and forthcoming has this super committee been, this meeting? I mean, I understand most of it's been kind of behind closed doors. Do you really have any idea what they're looking at trying to cut?
No, there's been no transparency. I think it's been, they wanted to have the, honestly, the privacy to be able to conduct, the left and the right being able to come together and talk, free of lobbyist influence, free of congressional pressure, administrative pressure. But again, you look at the people who are selected, they're ideologues, and they're going to be stuck on one thing, and and they don't share our same philosophies on jumpstarting this economy and lowering our deficits and fixing our debt problem. That has not gone away. It's only getting worse daily.
One follow-up, I know you commented to us before. What was your biggest eye-opener as a freshman congressman up there? I know you said the previous occupant of the office didn't exactly hand the keys to the office over to you. What was your biggest eye-opener, biggest challenge you saw as a freshman congressman?
Well, it was, like any small business, and we were completely a startup. We had to write out our mission statement. We had to go out and buy supplies, find our office, and hire people. There was no transition. It wasn't like I bought an existing franchise and someone just gave me the keys and I had, it was just nothing. It was a slab, and we had to build it back up. And like most small businesses, and startups, there's some obstacles thrown out there. But you just, through persistence, determination, hard work, and support and prayers from friends from the district, we overcame the obstacles, and we're doing great. Last count, we've answered over 45,000 in less than 10 months. 45,000 pieces of be it email, mail, in the district. So we're doing extremely good. We're introducing legislation. We're participating. It was getting elected was difficult. Making sure, I didn't know it was going to be so tough to actually get on the committees that are important in the South Mississippi. So worked hard to get on House Armed Services Committee, and I've served on Military Readiness and Sea Power and Projection Forces. That's basically our military installations and our shipbuilding, and should have been super tankers being built in Mobile County. However, We identified that we got great sites here in South Mississippi for the aerospace industry, and it's just a matter of time before we get a Boeing or an EADS. And then, of course, you know, having the great fortune of becoming a freshman chairman on Space and Aeronautics Subcommittee with Dennis and NASA in our backyard has been a wonderful experience. It's kept us extremely busy, and serving as assistant Republican whip to our Republican whip Kevin McCarthy has been a great experience. It's just, I've always felt that South Mississippi deserves better. You know, we're the economic engine of the state. You know, we have a lot to offer, and I'm committed to making you proud of the leadership that you sent up to Washington D.C. So we're doing all those things. So, you know, and we're trying to get people engaged too. That's the one thing. We had no bench. I guess after 20 years, we had no one to tap. No young people have been up on the Hill from South Mississippi. So when I'm looking for interns and employees, I'm looking for South Mississippi. Same people that share your values and your principles, and that you would be proud to send up there to be a part of our office, which is representing South Mississippi. So keep that in mind. You know, we're gonna need some interns next summer. It'd be nice to, when we've had some from Pearl River County. I think we've had 2 so far. It's been wonderful.
What about tax reform? Do you see any of that in the future with this budget?
Yes.
We hear a lot of it on Fox and everything else.
Yes. I don't know if it's gonna be 999. Makes me hungry every time I see that, hear that. A part of, again, you know, if some of y'all have heard my, you know, to create and foster a healthy business climate, you have to have less taxes, less regulation, less litigation, less unions, basically less government. That gives you the freedom and the opportunity to grow and expand your own business, become an entrepreneur, and it allows you to pursue the American dream on your terms, not on what the government mandates you do. So less taxes is extremely important. And by that, we have to simplify the tax code. I'm a CPA. I'll go, you know, my wife's committed to go finding another job, you know, but there's always going to be business for accountants. But simplify the tax code. Remove all the special interest loopholes that are in there, and lower the rate. Lower the rates. Right now, we're looking at 25% for corporate individuals, maximum tax rate. Lower those rates. Put more money back in your pockets so you can spend it the way you want to spend it. Small businesses, they're not gonna hold on to that money. They're gonna expand. They're gonna go look for other capital investments, because you know they want to you know, pursue that American dream. They want to be able to leave a legacy to their children. They want to work hard. It's a challenge. They like being productive, and we just got to get them to do that. But that's one part of it. The other part is we got to stop the EPA. We have to stop OSHA. We have to stop the National Labor Relations Board from destroying jobs in America. You know, when the EPA starts, and they're trying to do this, regulate farm dust in America, you know they've gone too far. When again, unelected bureaucrat stops a private company after they've already built a almost $1 billion building and has hired 1,000 people in South Carolina, and say, no, you can't open a business here, it's gone too far. And that affects Mississippi, because South Carolina's a right to work state. We're a right to work state. Why would these companies come down here if they can't? You know, if you know, Nissan, Toyota, ThyssenKrupp, other companies, we're constantly trying to attract industry here. Why would they come here especially if the NLRB is going to stop them? You know, for a lot of companies, we're the last stop before those jobs leave America forever. And for foreign investment, we're the only choice because of our healthy business climate in Mississippi and like Alabama and Louisiana and other states. We have a healthy business climate because we like to work here. We like jobs, you know. We want more of them, and they see that. And then it takes great leadership in the state Senate, the state House, Haley Barbour, the MDA, community leaders such as Wayne, yourself, John, the mayor. Everybody, I can name everybody in the room. I'm sorry, I'm gonna stop right there. But
Thank you again for being here.
My
Palazzo,
pleasure.
but just, I've got probably 99 questions, not 999, but 99 questions I'd like to ask you. Just because it was brought up kind of briefly here, taxes. What's your thoughts on flat tax?
I'm for anything that can work, that can actually get passed. I mean, you know, I like a flat tax. I want everybody to pay taxes. I don't want them to pay more taxes, but I think, you know, people need to have, I mean, David, you might not want to print that. That sounded so bad. But our goal is to broaden the tax base, create more taxpayers, not higher taxes. And the flat tax is one of those mechanisms. I mean, it's going to take a lot of study to be able to make sure. I think right now we need to trim government back to make it lean, make it efficient, make it effective, identify core government services, essential government services, national defense being one of those, and say, okay, well this is what it costs to run the government. This is our outlay. Instead of doing 1 year or 2 years, let's do 10 years. Let's do 20 years. Let's get off the short-term mindset. Because when we come in and we're voting, we're only looking to the next election. I mean, that's not me, but I mean, I'm telling you that's the way it is. We're just looking to the next election. And then you got countries like China who are looking 100 years down the road, 1,000 years down the road. And that's why I shouldn't have opened that can of worms. But we need to come back and talk about China in a minute. But yeah, a flat tax is a good alternative, but we got to make sure the flat tax can actually fund the essential government service. I think it could, but everything is going to involve on repealing the 16th Amendment. If we can't repeal the 16th Amendment, you're just going to create another form of possibly a VAT tax or something like that, and they're going to continue to keep hitting us with an income tax and a corporate tax. So. Y'all want to talk about China? Y'all want to talk about China? Let's just talk about China for a second since y'all brought it up. And I know y'all got things to do, business and community leaders. In August, you know, call me funny, but I actually went on a CODEL to the Pacific Command because I serve on the House Armed Services Committee, and I think it's important if I'm gonna vote on something to know the state of our military, to make sure they do have the equipment, the training and tools and leadership that they need. And the message that I got, not just from 4-star admirals, the Pacific Commander, Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, Philippine Department of Defense, South Korea's Department of Defense, Japan's Department of Defense, is that China scares the hell out of it. It's building a military very rapidly. And I remind people, China has no known enemy. Who's going to invade China? I mean, is America going to invade China? No. Is Russia going to invade China? Is India? Pakistan? No. Iran? Certainly not South Vietnam or the Philippines. Nobody's going to invade China. So why is the world's largest population, second largest economy, building up a Navy, building up an Air Force, building up an Army? We're trying to figure that out. And being that China isn't an honest broker in anything that they do, you know, for everything that we see them building up, they're probably doing twice as much that's being concealed and covered somewhere in China. It's all to deny, deter, and delay U.S. forces from being able to respond to our friends in the region. And you take it a step further, you know, the one thing in that area, we have some of the largest economies, you know, second, I think maybe the third largest economies over there, in the 5th and 7th. I mean, they're in, a lot of them in the top 15. But the one thing that we keep coming back to is, one, there's a lot of resources in the South China Sea. By the way, China's claimed all of it, and they've actually pushed South Vietnam was actually doing a survey for the subsea to, you know, possibly do some drilling. And guess what? A Chinese gunboat kind of ran them off. That's what they're engaging in, gunboat diplomacy. They're the biggest boy over there other than the U.S. naval forces and U.S. military presence. So they're doing all this to deny, delay, and deter us to be able to respond. But coming back to something that's critical, I just realized this from going over there, is we control the shipping lanes around the world. We've controlled them since World War II. And we're not pirates. We don't have toll roads. In fact, most of the countries that actually train with us on military exercises, they wouldn't be able to float their ships if it wasn't for us putting fuel in and navigation equipment and upgrades. So we've maintained commerce in that area and all around the world pretty much since World War II. That's what China wants. China thinks American history, I mean, because we're a young country, that we're just an anomaly, that we're just just a nuisance, and it's time for them to rise to their superpower status, global status. And so, and I say this again, I just want people to understand some of the things that I see. I mean, we're fighting over here. You know, we just passed the Protect Life Act in the House. Of course, it's going to go to the Senate and die. I mean, we're fighting for your family, your businesses, your values and your principles on a daily basis. But at the same time, we have these issues, these grave concerns that we're watching. Because if they take over the shipping lanes and if they push the U.S. presence out, and we've been told more than once, if one ship leaves the Pacific, it's a game changer. All of our allies are going to think that we're not there for the long haul. They're going to start cutting deals with the Chinese, and it's just going to fuel their growth even faster. They control the shipping lanes. Why is that side of the world going to trade with America? We will go from being a superpower to a regional power that may be marginal at best, because these economies will not trade with the American economy. I tie that in back to the cuts. That's why sequestration scares me. We cannot cut any more from our military, and we're going to do everything it takes to prevent sequestration, because our men and women deserve better in uniform, and our nation needs to be able to defend itself and to respond to threats all around the world. Our economic national security depend on it.
What about the death of Gaddafi? So far, they're saying he's been killed.
You say died from injuries?
Yeah, he's supposedly in a hole again. Let's hope not. Due justice comes to people. And so, and he's just been able to avoid his fate longer than most. If you don't pay for your sins and your transgressions in this lifetime, you're going to pay for it in the next. So, but it's good. But there's still a lot of concern with this Arab Spring, the uncertainty of who these people are, what's motivating them, what's generating, where they getting weapons from. So there's a lot of concern. And Iran, China is one of these things that, let me go back to China. and I'll get off of it. Somebody said the other day, well, Stephen, what can we do? Well, the last thing I ever want to see is a military conflict with China. This is the most avoidable conflict out there. And some people question whether China's one of these people. It's like a bully. All you got to do is stand up to them. They're gonna strut around. They're gonna spread their feathers. They're gonna rattle their swords. But if you stand up to them and show a force, you ain't got to worry about it. I don't want to take that chance. But I don't want to see a military conflict. It won't bode well for America. It won't bode well for the world. Okay, so then you go to, we got diplomatic corps, we got State Department, we got Hillary Clinton, all them out there. I don't put my faith in them coming up with diplomatic solutions, because China again has not been honest brokers. And so what can we do? What can we do to avoid a potential conflict with China? Everybody in this room has the power to avoid future conflict, can avoid future trade deficits, can actually help create jobs in America and avoid a military conflict with China. And it's because of your consumer purchasing behavior. We're fueling their military buildup. We're giving them the backbone to do what they do. But in return, we do get cheap, inexpensive goods, and our purchasing power has expanded. So when I just ask people, think about that when you purchase something. Buy American, buy from our friends, but think twice before you buy something made in China. So, especially seafood. The only one that's here.
Mississippi Gulf Coast specific.
There you go.
Thank you again for being here. What do you see then, I mean, we hear a lot of, and again, listen to these debates on TV, it's great, a lot of high level, broad, you know, world is great, but what do you see as a step toward getting people to buy American? I mean, it's great, I try to do it, try not to shop at Walmart, I'm sorry, sometimes I do, it's just the situation. It's more than that, just like you're talking about right now, our deficit reduction. We have a lot of deficits, trade deficits. We talk about working in the world economy. A lot of that's coming back to Americans, coming out of our pockets. So what are some things that we can truly do, not just talk about? What are certain steps that we can even take locally to make what we talk about truly come into fruition?
That's a good question. The main thing is just be conscious of it. You know, my wife hates shopping for me. I mean, she likes to shop, but she hates shopping for me because take it back. Take it back, take it back. I mean, there's, and I probably proved myself wrong, but there shouldn't be anything on my body made in China. From my shoes, to my socks, to my shirt, to my underwear. I mean, that's just, it may be Brazil, it may be Bangladesh, it may be Vietnam, but we try to buy American first, and then we try to buy from, you know, lesser of the two evils. And, but it's really needs to start at the state level. You know, I mean, we've done great things, you know, recognizing U.S. raised catfish. Man, that was extremely important. I mean, we got the best catfish in the world. Comes out of Mississippi. And then you got, I won't just blame China for this one. We got Southeast Asian copycat that's, you know, stuff that's just horrible coming over here and trying to call it catfish. And it's definitely cheaper, again, because almost every business in China is subsidized by the government so they can compete against our companies. You know, so we want every restaurant in Mississippi to make, if you serve USA catfish, you have to label USA catfish, and you got to post it where everybody can see. We ought to do it for the seafood. We try to do it in American contracts that I've seen. I know we don't always enforce it. We need to start doing that. If we're going to send $100 billion to say, well, let's take Brazil for example. We sent them $2 billion in loan guarantees to explore gas in the Gulf of Mexico when we don't even drill in the Gulf of Mexico anymore, or, you know, with the permatorium. We need to be drilling a lot more. Well, that $2 billion should be, okay, well, one, we're going to finance, you're going to have to use American workers, you're going to have to use American rigs, American technology, and you're going to have to buy all your products that you can from American companies. You know, that's I mean, I know it's kind of, I'm not being protectionist. I believe in free trade. I just don't believe in unfair trade. And if taxpayer money is going to be spent for something, taxpayers should be getting the benefit from it. And that's just one way of doing it. Now I could go back to Iran that we were just talking about. With me, it's like a ping pong match. You get see the ball. It's just like but I always come back and I try to finish the game. But there's a lot of bad people out there. They're not going away. We've been a decade at war. We're probably going to be at war a lot longer. I know please don't forget the men and women in uniform. I know y'all don't. And we're going to do everything we can to wrap up Afghanistan, to wrap up Iraq, and make sure that our blood and treasure wasn't for vain. But we as a country have to start thinking long term. Just like when you plan your business plan, you have short-term goals, you have long-term goals. And you come back and look at it from time to time to make sure you're achieving, that you haven't gotten off track, and that, you know, you're actually doing what you're supposed to be doing as a part of what you started out to do in the first place. So that's what I'm focusing on, because I think you deserve it, and our children definitely deserve someone thinking long term for them. So we're not 20 years from now, you're not hearing somebody else say the same thing, and just different faces in the crowd, different face up here. Because I will say, I did hear once in my first 9 months, had a chairman of a committee, Republican, I'll admit that. He said, you know, when I first got elected here, I could give the same, I found an old speech, and I could give that speech today. We need health care reform, we need to create jobs, we need less taxes, we got to balance the budget. if I'm saying that in 20 years, it's too late. So that's why we're working hard now. So,
We're probably coming close to the end here, but just quickly, what are some things that you're planning on doing in the next 12 months? Do you have bills you want to introduce? What do you feel is your strength over the next 3, 6, 12 months coming up?
Well, the number one thing is my colleagues and I on the House Armed Services Committee are going to be working night and day to make sure no more cuts affect our military. I know that's that's just imperative. That's number one right now. South Mississippi is a military community. We're fortunate to have retirees, a strong population of retirees. We have a lot of active duty installations. We represent all branches of the service here, and we have a strong industrial and military and commercial shipbuilding presence, aerospace and defense technology. You know, NASA is even part of our defense program. I mean, so making sure our defense, our nation's security is not cut anymore is my number one priority. And second, you know, we're working on Restore Act. Restore Act's a big thing right now. That's where it's going to 80% of the oil, the BP oil find money actually comes back to the 5 Gulf states. That's huge. It could be $1 billion to Mississippi, Texas, Louisiana, and Alabama and Florida. They said it could be anywhere from $5 billion to $20 billion. Our share, I mean, we're looking at least $1 to $2 billion for long-term economic and environmental recovery. It's even though it's BP money, some of our colleagues up in D.C. may want that money for other things. You know, that might, heck, the super committee may be looking at that as a form of revenue to help offset the 1.2 trillion cuts. So we'll be working real hard to get 434 people convinced that, you know, we bear the risk, we bear the economic and environmental and emotional injury. It's only right for that money to come back to the states that were affected. That's important. I'm trying to push a bill to have the National Guard be able to have a Joint Chiefs of Staff, a chairman. I mean, because quite honestly, the Guard and Reserves probably, well, not the Reserves, but the Air and Army Guard is pretty underrepresented when it comes to the Joint Chiefs of Staff. I think they deserve.
They're called on quite a bit to come and help.
Absolutely. They're no longer a strategic reserve force. They're an operational force, and they've done a hell of a job for the past 10, 15 years. And they're not going to go back to being a strategic reserve like some of my colleagues think they are. So I think it's fair that they're represented at the table. I'm still trying to tweak a term limits bill. You know, we just can't figure out how many years it should be. And
10 and 12. 10 and 12. 10 for the representatives, 12 for the senators.
Just make it easy. 12 and 12. Well, you know, some people say 4 and 4. Some people said 4 and 12. I'm like, 4 years for the House and 12 for the Senate, because they're thinking 2 terms.
Yeah.
I was like, we're not going to give the Senate that much power. They can't do anything now. So, but those are the kind of things. But everything, to me, it comes back to protecting the things that have made America great. Our military, our faith and family, and our small business and our entrepreneurs. And you can get distracted. There's a lot of shiny objects, a lot of crisis, daily crisis. I think it's intentional, to be honest with you. I think it's to keep us from going up there and do what we said we're going to do, and it just compounds and compounds and compounds until we get to like where we're at today, where we're in a deep hole. Some people want to give up. But you know, I say stop digging and start trying to climb out. So,
Have you actually met Nancy Pelosi?
Yeah, are you asking for personal? Listen, I was.
And thanked her for her role in the campaign down there.
We get a voting card. We're supposed to put it in there. It's not like Jackson where everything's on voice vote, or you have your buddies voting for you with sticks in the house. But we get a voting card, and if you don't have your voting card, you got to go up to the well, and they have green cards and red cards. Of course, green's yes, red's no. And I was reaching for a card, and I see his little hand coming. Yeah, but the good thing is, we don't vote the same way. So she went to the one car and I went to the other. And I kind of glanced at her, I just kind of backed away. I didn't want to disturb the evil presence. But listen, it's a great honor for me to be here today. Thank y'all so much. And y'all are doing a wonderful job. You got wonderful representatives, you got wonderful business and community leaders, you got wonderful chamber people. So doing a wonderful job, and anything we can do to help, please let us know. Fred Sullivan's my field rep. He likes to claim Pearl River County as his backyard. So if you need anything, let us know. Thank y'all so much.
I want to thank you, Congressman Palazzo, for coming today, and apologize to you that I introduced you so informally. But you do have a huge presence here in Pearl River County, and so I feel like I'm on a...
Hey, I like short introductions. half the time what I talk about is in my introduction anyway, so.
Thank y'all all for coming this morning, and don't forget we have our 63rd Annual Award Banquet coming up, and next Friday is the last day to purchase a ticket. And as well, we have business after hours at Wow Cafe and Wingery tonight. So, see you there. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. Great. This is like family.